Welcome back to another episode of NextGenDDS. Scott, welcome back to the show.
Wes, great to be back with you again.
We do apologize for the delay in recording. We've got a new recording studio, ran into some technical issues, lost a bunch of film, but we are back. So glad to be here. And we got a pretty hard-hitting topic for the first one. We're talking about dental insurance today. So Scott, I heard you were almost investigated over this once.
Many of you may know I started practicing in 1985, and dental insurance was moderately new. And back in the day, there was I guess maybe the first formation of some kind of discount or PPO, HMO, DMO, some model was talking about coming to Charlotte and was sending letters to dentists asking them to join in. And while there wasn't an official sanctioned campaign by the Dental Society, a lot of dentists were talking about it. And we all started a lot of dentists sent letters to this company saying, don't bother coming. We're not going to sign up for your plan. There's not going to be anybody. And it didn't take long for complaints to go to the SEC, and they came down with investigators and ended up having to go have a conversation. I was happy to have that conversation because I just was really pretty simple, and we'll talk about this during our little discussion today. And I said to the examiner, the investigator, I said, it's pretty interesting. I said, would you take, a 30 or 40% cut in your salary to sign up for a group? I said, because that's basically what they're wanting us to do. And I said, none of us want to take a discount in our salaries. We're working hard. And he kind of looked at me and he said, we probably had talked about 10 or so minutes. And when I said that to him, he says, okay, we're done. And I think that's kind of what he was hearing from most of the other dentists. And that still holds true today, and we'll talk more about that. But
no, definitely. And I think it comes in, I like how you phrase that, we're talking about what is dental insurance. It's not insurance, right? It's just
absolutely not.
Reimbursement program, and you have to accept their rate if you participate in network. Now, where this kind of got started, I know the history of it. I wasn't alive when this happened, but I know the history of it. It started really in the Midwest and the Northwest, and they came in and, at first it wasn't a discounted rate. At first it was, hey, this is going to be a company provided benefit. That way, hey, if you sign up with us, all these employees are going to have this dental, insurance. And they're not going to have to pay to come see you, which means you're going to get more patients. So they got a bunch of people to sign up. Well, then we know inevitably what happened. Here came the next bag of tricks. And, now all of a sudden, hey, we're actually going to change our negotiated reimbursement schedule and we're going to cut down. And the cuts probably didn't start heavy until like the 90s. And then I think the 2000s, it probably just went through the roof. And now there's so much competition. But that's how they got people to sign up originally for it. We're in the Southeast, and there's a lot less dental insurance to this day than there is in the Midwest and the Northwest. I think, to your point, Scott, the Southerners, when the suits came in, it's going to be great for you, said, I don't know what you're selling, but don't come sell it here.
Yeah, for sure. And, we always talk about North Carolina where the dental community's been pretty slow to change. And I guess that's good and bad. And in this case, I think there's a lot of recognition of the benefits that we had and what we were doing. We're talking when in 1985, dental insurance actually paid for something. There was I remember IBM had a big employee base here in Charlotte, and they had about their insurance plan was $2,500 maximum per year. Well, I remember back in the day, our fee was probably $450 to $500 for a crown, so you could actually get some real dental work done. And what's happened over time, and there were a lot of other plans that were like that, but there were a lot of other ones that just over time they've reduced from $2,500 to $2,000 to $1,500 to $1,000, and now we're seeing even more of them, $750, and with real restrictions on what you can do and what it can be used for. So, to your point, Wes, it's not really an insurance model that we normally understand. It's just a reimbursement model. Your company is a company has said to its employees, we're going to pay up to $1,000 of your dental fee. and we really don't care, for the most part, we really don't care the fact that you're not going to get a whole lot out of it, but we're going to give you $1,000.
Right. And I think it's really meant from that side of the house to be an employee benefit, which, you've got varying companies. And as we kind of dive in, maybe we'll explain how it works a little bit on the front end and what it means to the actual young dentist on the back end. But a lot of these employers, people don't know, like my wife works for the Hartford and it's an employee benefit, and the Hartford prides themselves on these employee benefits. Mine's 100% out of network. It's Delta, but it doesn't matter if I go out of network. So it kind of depends on what that is for. Some employers are better than others, but the ones where people go sign up directly, that's definitely going to be an in-network discount. But some of them, when you're with employers, the employers may have great out-of-network benefits. We're in Napa for our seminar, and I had a friend come with me and her boyfriend. And, these are people that work in finance and make a lot of money here in Charlotte. Like, they can afford dental care. But we're talking to the two of them, and they have chased around every in-network dentist. Yeah. And I'm like, you sure? Like, you work for a pretty small firm. Like, pull up your dental insurance. He pulls it up. He's like, oh, see, in-network, this is it. And I was like, click that tab that says out of network. He clicks it, 100% paid anywhere he wants to go. He's chasing around the dentist.
So let's make sure we explain what in-network and out-of-network really means, because that really is, that defines a little bit on the reimbursement level. So, take it, go ahead and take it from there. And
so in-network, you're actually contracted with that insurance company, meaning you've agreed to take their rate.
Yeah, so the dentist has agreed. Yeah, I've agreed to take
discounted
whatever rate they're paying, and those do vary significantly from insurance company to insurance company.
Yeah, it's not all terrible. We always suspect to get in because they might cut later. Like I had a dentist just contact me, and there's a company that wanted him to be the exclusive provider. And they said, hey, this is who does our insurance, though. We've talked to them. We've told them we want you. They're going to contact you. Well, the insurance company contacted them, and we're sitting there looking over the reimbursement rate. We're like, hey, it looks like we need to raise your fees to get the full fee out of the insurance company. I mean, this is an absurd reimbursement schedule. He's like, should I do it? I'm like, we have to go through the pros and the cons. But he'd have to agree to that rate. Now, you can still take it. Most of the time, they're not going to be great reimbursements, right? Because we were talking, you were only in network with one at any point in time.
That's correct.
So usually the rates of reimbursement are bad if you contractually get in network with them. But if you're out of the network, that patient can still get paid. And a lot of times you can still accept payments from the insurance companies. It's just everyone's benefits are going to be different.
Right. And in this case, in many cases, the patient then makes up the difference. So let's just use $1,000 as the let's say we charge $1,500 for a crown. If the accepted rate is $1,000 for that crown in network, that's the maximum that I would ever be able to get for that fee, because I've agreed to the discount number. Mm-hmm. We were only in network for one insurance company. I kind of regret that we ever did it. There was good reasons why we did it at the time. But being out of network, basically, so let's say the insurance company was going to pay 50% on that crown at $1,000. They would pay me $500. The patient would then make up the patient's got to come up with an extra $500 out of pocket, basically $1,000 versus $500. If you're delivering the right kind of care and you're building value and trust, I had very few patients who ever left just because we were in network or not.
A lot of people don't understand too, like when you dive into those benefits, a lot of times, the patient pay portion might be 50%. It's going to be 50% either way. So in this case, let's say your crown's $1,500, their negotiated fee's $1,000. In network, the patient may pay $500. Out of network, they may pay $750. Oftentimes, you don't have to make up the full difference in that fee, but it's dependent on every single patient's individual insurance, because some of them will say, hey, we'll pay 70% in network, but we'll only pay 40% out of network. So then you've got a battle between not only, is that patient, not only are they going to have to pay the increased fee, but now they have to pay 60% of it instead of 30% of the lower fee. And that's going to chase some people off.
Yeah. And it's hard. You got to be upfront with people. I know when we answer the phone in my office before retiring, we basically said, we accept every insurance. We're just not in network. We're only in network for one. So we may be out of network. That may change, the amount that you might have to pay. But we always kind of, just said to them again, we're going to provide more value for that money. You'll be happy to do it. And I know I did it as a consumer when there were times I would see doctors that were not in network for the insurance companies. That's changing a little bit because the big players in the world the doctors are pretty much in network for everybody these days.
Obamacare kind of took care of that one on the medical side.
Right. But I was always one of chasing. I always wanted to make sure I was choosing people based on these were the people I wanted, not the fact that you were just chasing, like your friends, you were just chasing whoever was in network. And most of the time I'd have a few people who would leave. They, most of the time, within a year, were back saying, it was crazy. I don't know who I was seeing. The care was bad. It wasn't personalized. It just wasn't what I was looking for. So we've got that we now understand. So the in-network and out-of-network, in-network basically says your name will be on a list. You will be listed as an in-network provider that might provide you with some referrals, but you are going to take a discount on your fee, which the way I always looked at it is it's coming straight out of my pocket because it doesn't happen. It happens after expenses. You paid all your expenses. What's left? And you've taken that fee and you've got to live with that.
Your lab bill is not going down. You don't get an in-network discount with the lab bill. You don't get an in-network discount with the staff cost.
Yeah, my rent didn't go down either. Right.
But as an owner, you do get an in-network discount on what you pay the associate because they're getting paid off collections.
Right. Yeah. And so that's, we'll probably get a little time here to talk through that. But it's important just for those that just don't really understand the insurance piece. And we would certainly advocate, spend your time. There's so many resources. We've got a ton of those on in the McGill Advisory, your advisory newsletter, looking back at this for years of how does this affect? Because it does affect your bottom line. And we're not saying that's you can't be successful without being in network. It just changes the dynamics and the financial impact on that practice.
No, I think the better you get at it, though, the more likely you are to be out of network. But it's very, very important to understand it. So when a patient has a question or has a concern, that you as the dentist can talk to them and, say, hey, you're right. We are out of network. Let me talk to you about how this works. And you can go through them and say, hey, your portion's going to be 70%, but if I were in network, it'd be 70% of this fee, which is very discounted. And we can't run a high quality dental practice off of this fee. So your out of network benefits are still going to pay. And this is going to be your portion of it. You're not going to be on the hook for all of it. And a lot of times, I've had doctors tell me, like Delta in particular, in some areas, Delta PPO, you can't afford to do the crown with a high quality material, period. You lose money on it. I sit there and I tell them, well, why are we doing it? You got to get out of the network. And they'll tell me when they have that conversation, the patient, if they have the conversation the right way, more often than not, the patient's mad at the insurance company, not the doctor. And now all of a sudden they want the doctor to be able to get their full
because you're the only one there. The insurance company's not there. Yeah. And you talked earlier, so we've explained a little bit about this in-network and out-of-network. People have heard the expression fee for service. And basically that means you're getting your full fee. And again, my practice was obviously had been around for a long time. And there's still plenty of fee-for-service practices out there. But it just means that, if it's $1,500 for a crown, 90 to 95% of my patients were paying that full fee. I don't have to work as hard. I could take more time with that patient and make the experience a whole lot better for them. I mean, so I had CEREC, I had cone beam, we had state-of-the-art, hand pieces and equipment, and everything was really the top of the line. And the only way to do that was getting reimbursed at a proper level. We weren't crazy. We weren't charging $3,000, twice what everybody else was. We were charging the average of what people were charging for crowns in our area. So I think understanding that, and then the biggest piece you were talking about, you said earlier about the insurance rate, the reimbursement rates. Those they promised a lot, but it never kept up. I know when we signed up, those rates were really pretty close to what we were charging at the time, and it looked really pretty good. You fast forward 15 years later, they were terrible. They were talking about cutting them, not keeping pace or increasing them. So it was the difference between what we were getting at the beginning and what we were getting at the end only got bigger, which meant it was coming out of my pocket.
I see this all the time. I've got this one client, a great young guy, goes into Virginia, buys a practice, and the senior doctor had not changed his fee schedule since like 1995. And so, well, why should I change it? That's all I'm ever going to get reimbursed. So, young doctor gets in there and scraps the insurance. Doesn't matter at the time because the fees are too low, so everything's just getting paid. Then we're sitting there, and we've got to bring these fees. They're literally from 1995. Like, it's horrifying what people are paying. Practice is fully busy, so, we go, okay, we're going to bring them like into the lower end of actually being a fee schedule first. So he does it. The fees go up substantially, but they're still probably the cheapest in the area. And, I was like, okay, well, what's the reaction been? How are you doing? He's like, well, I'm still the busiest dentist in this town. I can't get people in, and everyone laughed. Everyone knew the fees were too low. So he goes back like 3 months later and he goes, all right, this is what the fees should be. So he gets him to what the fees should be. And he ends up getting a practice that was doing like $1.5 million for basically what it was doing $500,000 because the doctor never did it. But a lot of them, that was it. In 1995, it was level. Everyone paid what your fee schedule was. And then all of a sudden, fee schedules are going this way, reimbursement rates are staying the same. And it's like, you out of your mind thinking we're going to do a crown for, I've seen some as low as like $300. Like, you can't do a crown for $300.
You're losing money.
100%.
100% losing money.
But yeah, it does bring a odd dynamic into running a business when you have to even consider taking lower fees. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Like, hey, Wes, hey, I could bring you a bunch of new clients, but you'd have to charge 40% less. Like, well, I don't care how many you bring me at 40% less. We're bankrupt.
Yeah, and so it's one of the things. When I was doing some consulting while I was working, it was one of my other entrepreneurial kind of things. My wife and I were doing some consulting, and the first things we would look at for these doctors, and most of them were, we always said it was the doc who'd been out 5 to 7 years, had a practice, or had bought one, or now had their own practice, and they were going, I'm so busy, but I'm not making any money. And the first thing we would do, and my wife would spend, a day really going through a whole analysis of their PPOs and what the reimbursements rates were. And I know when you work with your clients, it's like, okay, we got to start, you're doing your tax and business planning. You're like, okay, we're going to start eliminating these really terrible ones. You don't get rid of them all at one time, but we would just look at these docs and say, you're better off. I said, you're better off just not seeing that patient and putting your feet up on your desk and, searching the internet or reading a book, because it's just, you're losing money with what these people are giving you. So we would encourage you, understand this fee for service, but also understand what you're getting when you're in network and what kind of discount that you're taking, because that will affect, your bottom line as an owner. But also as an associate, you're not getting paid on the you're getting paid on the reimbursement number. You're not getting paid on let's call it the fee for service number.
Yeah, so let's pivot into that. Let's start with associate, then let's go to ownership. So We were talking, I had this funny one where young dentist calls me up. He's got 3 different offers to go work, which is great. And he's got 3 varying percentages. And, I want to take the ones 35%. And I go, well, okay, which ones of these are fee for service? Which ones are in network? What are the average reimbursement rates? Are you going to be forced to go in network? He was super nice. But he's like, I hadn't thought of any of that. Is that a big deal? I'm like, well, yeah, if the practice, it's common that practices heavily inundated with insurance will only collect 55 to 65% of their production. I'm like, dude, if you're getting 35% of 60%, that's still a very low number. You're going to be doing a lot of dentistry versus, one of these other ones, if it's 30% of 100%, you'll be in much better shape. And I'd ask some questions. So I'd kind of, in my mind, from the answers he'd given me, I'd figured out that 2 of these very well may be fee for service and 1 clearly was not. But kind of looking at it both ways, practices with heavy amounts of insurance or tons of it in there, they usually have a lot of patients. So you're going to be very busy as an associate.
Right.
So,
but we talked earlier about, getting experience. That could be good, but you just got to understand how that's going to affect your paycheck. For sure.
Exactly. And the other 2 is we were talking about, well, we need to ask questions about these doctors, how we're going to get patients, how you're going to get busy, all this stuff. That's what you're balancing. But when you're looking at this as an associate, you need to know this ahead of time, especially, you go in, corporate's largely going to be in network.
Yep, they are.
So, you go into corporate and you've got production goals or, I'm going to take the signing bonus, but if I don't make, $250,000 a year, then they're going to claw some of it back. It's like, well, I can, you think, I can do $750,000 of dentistry. I'm like, but can you do 1.25? Because
you're right. You're going to have to do more to do it. And again, they'll a lot of times they're going to keep you busy. The question is, especially early in your career, are you ready for that? And are you prepared mentally and certainly skill-wise? Coming out of school, you're not. It's just going to take a little bit of time to ramp that up. So just what we're saying, as an associate, just take a look at, what kind of environment you're going into, because it will impact, the reimbursement that you get. There may be a good reason to go do it. We're not saying don't. We're just advising you to make sure you understand what it is you're walking into.
Yeah, I can kind of give apples to apples here. I've met with doctors. They're making $150,000, $200,000 corporate, and they're producing, $800,000-$900,000 a year. Well, I'm over there talking to a doctor, the owner, not the associate, but he brought in an associate. And he's like, well, she's not getting ramped up as quickly as I'd like. She's only doing $40,000 a month, So I go through the numbers like, hey, you're still profitable. It's not a big deal. You're making money off of her presence there. And he's like, yeah, but is she going to be happy? I'm like, well, she's still making over 100,000. Like, yeah, she's kind of twiddling her thumbs, but she's making over 10 grand a month. What's the... Right. Is she super happy? No. However, she's probably making the same a lot of her friends are doing twice the amount of dentistry.
Right. That's right.
So it's just 2 different worlds. Now, we're not going to talk really about how to practice or how to purchase practices. I just want those tidbit in there. We will talk about an upcoming episode. You do need a production history to buy a practice. So if your ultimate goal is, hey, I want to buy a practice, I want to buy a really nice one that's super productive. At the end of the day, going to a DSO or going somewhere where they're in network and knowing you're not going to get paid your full fee, but you are going to get your production history because that dentistry is there to get done. Huge positive, right? You have to balance that.
It
right?
Absolutely can be.
If this associate I'm talking about that's only doing, $40,000 a month, if she goes to buy a practice doing total 1.4, 1.5 million, they're going to tell her no for no other reason other than, hey, you've only done 40 a month. Now, yes, hygiene's a component, but now we need you to do 90 a month. That's over double your current versus they'll look at you and you say, hey, I only did 50 a month in collections, but 90 a month in production. What they don't care if you go to buy that practice, they just want to know you can get in there and you can do the dentistry. So there's a huge positive there and an ability to get busy and get yourself a track record. But, you are going to take a little bit of a pay cut doing it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah, we talked about kind of from the associate end, and then we've talked a lot about, as an owner, you're just taking that money's coming out of your pocket. And your expenses aren't going down. You're agreeing to fill a chair, and at times that's good. You just got to be really careful, because once you're kind of in, it's hard to get out, because then if you let's say you stop taking that. If you've got like friends, like, patients like your friends who are just going from provider to provider because they're in network, and that's kind of becoming a little more of the trend these days. You're gonna lose patients as well as losing revenue.
Yeah. So as it comes to the young doctors, and Scott, I think you're going to probably have a little bit better take on how to figure some of this stuff out. But if I'm looking at the practice to buy, I want to be very conscious of this insurance issue. So first thing I want to know is, hey, are we in network? Second thing is, I think it'd be great to get your input. How much of the new patients are coming because of the in-network status? And how much are coming because of the doctor's reputation or referral based? And I'd imagine you kind of pin that down by figuring out, hey, of the new patients, I want a breakdown of what in-network or out-of-network or which insurance it was. But, to be very, very telling, if you're going looking at buying one, oh, great, they get 30 new patients a month. And then you're in some town and they're the only ones in network with Aetna, and, they get 30 new Aetna patients a month that are only paying half the fee. And it's like, oh.
Yeah, when I'm working with, a lot of what I do is working with young doctors looking to buy practices, and that's one of the questions that I'll ask. And every once in a while, I'll have a really astute doc will look at me and say, "Yeah, I'm in this town, and everything is based on, one of the big insurance companies, and so I have no choice, because if I don't." And then I'll just, I certainly say to them, take a good hard look at what that reimbursement rate is. If it could be good. Most likely it's not going to be great. But if it's terrible, sometimes we'll tell them, just understand what you're walking into. I mean, that's crucial. There's a lot of things we'll certainly talk through, buying a practice. That may take us a couple episodes to talk through, but understanding that, I'll always ask now when I do the buyer representation, I'll always ask, okay, get a printout of, your patient base, who's got insurance and which insurance companies. And especially if you're in network, just so that you get an idea. You don't have to know exactly who it is, but is 30% coming from one insurance company? Oh, it's important to know.
You do need to know that.
You do want to know.
Especially, we didn't really dive into Delta, which is its own animal in the insurance world. But Delta has something called Premier status, and a lot of the senior doctors are going to be on Delta Premier, and they have a special reimbursement rate. And Delta Premier, or Delta, typically does not let young doctors onto Delta Premier. So if you go buy one of these practices, you're automatically Delta PPO, and you might go from getting 85% of the fee to getting 60% of the fee overnight. It's so bad in certain states like California that practices have to get evaluated using this. Nobody even tries to sell one without being forthcoming on, hey, this is what the collections would be under Delta PPO, because everybody knows it. And I had a guy who wasn't represented call me, and somebody wanted $1 million for a practice, and it's like 1.3. And I called him and said, "Hey, but how much of this is Delta?" And he's like, "Oh, I don't know. I'll find out." It's all Delta, and it's all going to go to Delta PPO. The practice was going to collect like $550,000. So you have to be aware of that one too, and have somebody help you through that. But there's just a lot there to look at when you're looking at buying one, and the insurance is definitely something you're going to want to help with.
Yeah. And we clearly, in the episode coming up in the near future, we were going to talk about buying a practice. Clearly, getting great advice is crucial, and having your own representation, somebody who's going to help you, navigate this is just, you're foolish if you don't do it. And we'll talk about that more. But
no, to kind of wrap up today's, we just want to give you an overview of, hey, this is how the insurance or the reimbursement plans actually work. It's hard to kind of give specific advice without seeing exactly what's going on in this world. However, best advice to everybody is be very conscious of it whenever you're either going to work as an associate, buy a practice, it doesn't matter. You should understand the reimbursement rates, the schedules, all of this before you dive in the deep end with somebody.
No doubt. It's just being a smart business person, and making sure you understand the financial impact of these things. Listen, insurance is good. I mean, you're going to get money from it, but you're not getting, it's not like the medical world where, you have a big procedure, they're going to, after the deductible, they're going to pay unlimited amounts of money. That just doesn't happen. And so you got to just be very, very careful and understand there's a limited amount. It's just a reimbursement. We collected a lot of money from insurance companies, but a lot of what we collected was out of pocket because we were delivering a care and service, and that was above and beyond, and you can do that, and we would advise that if you can.
My last tip for everyone: believe it or not, the further away you get from the big city center, the less people care about the dental insurance. The guy practicing in the country is unlikely to be in network with anything. You get close to that city center, high likelihood most practices are in network with most. So as you're kind of going through that, thinking about, maybe I don't want to live there. Yeah, that guy might be raking in cash though.
No doubt about it. No doubt. Well, I think we've given them some great information, and obviously a lot more to come. And if you've got any questions, refer to the advisory that Wes is putting out every month, and contact us with any questions.
All right. Thanks for joining, Scott.
Thanks, Wes.